Hey everybody, thanks once again for tuning into the podcast today. Hope y'all are having a great day wherever you're at. Hope you're healthy and happy and getting outside and enjoying some of that sunshine. It's a beautiful day here in Steamboat Springs. Just a few clouds in the sky, but I think it's going to be another beautiful spring day. So, I have a friend with me today, a new friend I've met this year on the ice, actually. We were at a ice fishing event for Rocky Mountain Sportswomen, and Kirsten was there helping us getting everything ready, and I thought I would have her on. So I'm going to have you introduce yourself to everyone and kind of let us know a little bit about who you are, your background, and what led you to becoming a park ranger.
Yeah, hi guys. My name's Kirsten Miller, and I work for Colorado Parks and Wildlife as a park ranger. My primary station is Pearl Lake and Steamboat Lake State Parks, and that's where I spend most of my time when I'm working. So I actually grew up here in the Yampa Valley. I was lucky enough that when I was placed at my park, I was able to come back home, and most of my family's still in the area, so it's a great opportunity, even just outside of the career field, to be able to come back home. And what led me to this career path was probably the fact that, I grew up here and I enjoy outdoor recreation. I love to hunt and fish and camp and do all those things that make this valley in particular so great to live in. And all of those life experiences and, my studying of biology in college kind of led me into this career path. And it wasn't actually something I thought of going into college as a possible career, but I started working at a state park after I graduated, actually, just as a seasonal, and found out it was something that I love and I'm very passionate about. And yeah, I'm lucky to do what I do.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those things, like in the summertime, the rafting company that I've worked for in the past, we always have this joke when whether we're on the river or carrying boats or just hanging out at the boathouse, we're like, wait, we get paid for this?
Right.
To be able to be outside. And why don't you go ahead and just tell us a little bit about what, a day in the life of a park ranger looks like. And I kind of want to dive into why we have park rangers and, why we need them to be out there, and kind of the whole full circle of why it's important, and for our state parks and for the public, and how you guys help educate others and try and help people get out and enjoy the great outdoors. So if you just want to kind of expand on that, you've got the floor. Talk about what you like, but that's kind of, want to get that point across to everyone, kind of on, the essential, the little pieces to our public lands and our state lands and how we manage them and things like this, to try and help keep it protected and the rules and whatnot.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess I'll start with talking about what Colorado Parks and Wildlife as an agency actually does and who we are. So Colorado Parks and Wildlife actually manages, obviously, all of the state parks in Colorado. There's 41.5 right now, I guess, technically. We're working on opening up a new state park down by Trinidad. It's called Fisher's Peak, and I know they had kind of a limited soft opening so far, but we're working on getting that one up to full speed. Hopefully by this summer it'll be open to the public regularly. So we manage all 41 state parks in the state. We manage all of the wildlife species of the state. That's both game and non-game species. We manage over 350 state wildlife areas, 19 fish hatcheries, and tons of recreational programs. Colorado Parks and Wildlife issues hunting and fishing licenses. We conduct research to improve wildlife management, and we protect high-priority wildlife habitats through acquisitions and partnerships. So we provide technical assistance to private and other public landowners concerning wildlife and habitat management, and we develop programs to protect and recover threatened and endangered species as well. So a lot of times I think people think that, because we are the agency that issues hunting and fishing licenses, that's all we're concerned about, but we actually do a lot of work with endangered and threatened species. We also administer the state's trails program, which we, I guess, manage the registrations of off-highway vehicles, including dirt bikes and side-by-sides, boats, and snowmobiles. And that money that people pay into their registrations every year actually goes back into whatever type of recreation they're doing. So it goes back to the trails program, and that money goes into building new trails, to maintaining the trails that we already have, boating safety stuff for our water recreation, and for snowmobile, it goes into the grooming operations for the snowmobile clubs. So all of that, we do a lot of different things, but the most interesting thing that I think a lot of people don't understand is how we're funded. Colorado Parks and Wildlife is actually a user-funded agency. We don't receive general tax dollars. So the sales of parks passes, camping permits, hunting and fishing licenses, all of that is what actually provides the bulk of our funding. Sportsmen's actually contribute the largest amount to our overall funding for Colorado Parks and Wildlife. But a lot of people, I guess, assume that we get tax dollars, which we don't. There's, I guess, a certain percentage of our funding that comes from excise tax on the sales of hunting and fishing equipment. But, you know, most of our money actually comes from the user groups that we provide our services and use for. So I guess, you know,
it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. We do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So I guess as a park ranger, I'm, you know, a tiny piece in this huge puzzle that makes up everything that Colorado Parks and Wildlife does. But our primary duty is to be on a state park and provide, you know, a wide array of services to people. Officers with Colorado Parks and Wildlife are actually fully commissioned peace officers. So we have the same law enforcement capabilities as a city police officer or a county sheriff's deputy or trooper. And a lot of people, I guess, are sometimes taken back by that because, you know, they'll see the duty belt and all the gear we carry and like, you know, what do you guys need that stuff for? But believe it or not, we deal with more and more law enforcement contacts every year. Not everybody that comes into our state parks and our natural spaces are always, you know, looking for the same opportunities as everybody else.
Right.
So we do get a wide range of things that are going on. So yeah, we kind of like to say that we are here to protect the park from the people, protect the people from the park, and protect the people from the people. That's kind of how we say what we do. But basically, we're here to, you know, protect those natural resources so that they're here for current and future generations. That's actually part of the mission of our agency, is to perpetuate the wildlife resources and provide a quality state park system. So in order to do that, we have to make sure that everyone is contributing to that wise use of our resources and not taking advantage of it. So most of the rules and regulations within state parks are to serve that exact same purpose, to help perpetuate those resources so that we don't get, you know, overused areas, too much impact from the public, that kind of stuff. And then a lot of our other rules and regulations are for safety. That's a huge one for our agency, is providing these awesome opportunities, but also making sure that everyone's participating in a way that's obviously going to benefit them in the long run. And then, you know, the parks passes and fees for hunting and fishing licenses and all that stuff, we actually do go out and enforce those as well. But like I mentioned already, that's where the money comes from. That's how we're funded. So if people aren't paying for parks passes and coming in, they, you know, they're not helping anybody out, let alone themselves, right? Because that's actually how we can keep these places open and available to the public.
Yeah, I always chuckle when I go to a state park and there's people who are parking outside of the entrance and walking in because they don't want to pay the $7, the $12, whatever it is for a day fee. It went up to
$9 at the Steamboat Lake now, which there is kind of a varying price model now. So depending on the park, there is a little bit of variation in what we charge. But it's super funny that you say that, because recently certain parks now have a walk-in pass for that very reason. because those people are, still having an impact on our resources. They're coming in, they're using our bathroom facilities and, recreating and not paying into it. So there is actually a walk-in pass for a lot of state parks, and Steamboat and Pearl Lake are actually 2 of them. So that, we can hopefully encompass that user group as well.
Okay, so they're just paying a fee as they're walking in, or they're paying like an overall fee for like a season's walk-in pass? Or
there's actually the potential for that to be a thing, the walk-in pass for annual purposes, but right now it's just a daily pass and it's $4. And if someone, say that you do have an annual pass on your vehicle, and for whatever reason you chose to bike into the park, for example, you can use that receipt from your annual parks pass to get you in.
Gotcha.
So it's just basically making sure that you're paying into what you're using.
And don't you guys have a year lifetime parks pass for like the elderly once they reach a certain age?
We used to. Yeah, it was a card actually that you got, and I honestly don't remember what the price was, but yeah, it used to be a lifetime pass. If you were a senior, you could purchase this card, and then every year you'd take the card in and we'd just give you a free pass. They did get away from doing that. I just don't think it was as popular perhaps as they thought it was going to be.
Right.
And so we do still offer a discounted rate for Colorado residents that are over 65. It's a $70 annual parks pass instead of the $80 regular annual parks pass. And so it does give them the discounted rate on coming into the park, but it also comes with a $3 discount on camping fees Sunday through Thursday.
Yes.
So if they're making reservations, they'll get a discounted camping rate, which they're good for not a calendar year, but from month of purchase until the end of that month the following year. So they're a pretty good deal. I think people really enjoy that pass, especially with the camping perks.
Right. Yeah. To be able to have that. Absolutely. Yeah. What about like internships? Do you guys offer any sort of recruitment or internships for people who are wanting to get involved in this kind of work?
Yeah. So we actually have tons of opportunities in the summer, especially within state parks. A lot of the wildlife biologists and different positions within the wildlife side, they offer tech positions. That's kind of what they're called. But, opportunities to go out and do telemetry work and, interact with some fawning operations where, we're trying to figure out, deer and fawn ratios and cow-calf ratios. We've got a lot of opportunities like that. And then within state parks, we actually hire lots and lots of seasonals every summer. So like I mentioned, that's actually how I started within the agency, was as a seasonal. Every year we hire seasonal boat inspectors, seasonal park rangers who actually do hold a limited law enforcement commission and can enforce our parks and wildlife rules and regulations. And then we also have visitor center positions and naturalist interpretation positions. So those folks will go out and provide education programs to the public and kind of do some outreach and engagement on the parks. So we have a lot of opportunities for that. And then we also do internships. So if one of our seasonals comes to us and says, hey, I'm still in school, I'd like to make this part of an internship, their supervisors are always happy to accommodate that and do whatever they need to do with the school to make it happen.
Absolutely. That's great.
Yeah.
One thing that I was kind of wanting to dive into a little bit more is, what are some of the ways that you guys help enhance or protect the fish and wildlife populations in those state parks?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. So a lot of parks, not all of them, so you actually have to look into it, do offer hunting opportunities within the park. Steamboat Lake is actually one of them. So we manage the wildlife just like everywhere else in the state. The management model for Colorado Parks and Wildlife is that North American conservation model. And we are, just as an agency, leaders in conservation of wildlife. And I think that The variety that you see within state parks of different wildlife, just for wildlife viewing purposes even, is a testament to, what this agency is really capable of. And Steamboat Lake State Park is actually what is considered a gold medal waters. So that means that we have a high density of large fish in our lake, and obviously provides awesome angling opportunities for people. And, within the park, it's especially important to make sure that we really are enforcing those bag and possession limits and fishing licenses, because, again, all of that money is what pays for, stocking and management. And we've got people that come up and, obviously sample the fish and check on how all of that's going. And we've got people that come up and do A&S testing just to make sure that we don't have any aquatic nuisance species. And we have boat inspectors that diligently look over every single vessel that's coming into our lake to make sure that we don't get any invasive species that will basically cripple our fish habitat. So that kind of stuff. And then just good habitat management. We don't encourage people to, I guess, make social trails all over the park and fragment our landscape in that way. And we try to just maintain the trails that we have and keep the resources, I guess, as well maintained as possible to provide good habitat for everything that's already living in the park.
Right. So with the fish being caught there, is it all catch and release, or?
No, actually. So if you look into a Colorado fishing brochure, the 2021 Colorado fishing brochures just came out. They're a great resource. This is everything that our agency expects an angler to know about fishing in the state of Colorado. If you look in the book, it'll tell you statewide bag and possession limits. And some bodies of water can actually be more restrictive than just statewide bag and possession limits. And so it's important when you're going to a new lake or new stretch of river to look in the back of the fishing brochure, because everything is listed out alphabetically. And it will tell you if a body of water is more restrictive than the statewide bag and possession limits. So if you look in the back, you won't find Steamboat Lake because it is not... my apologies, my phone's making noise. Steamboat Lake is just statewide bag and possession limits. However, if you look in the back, you'll find Pearl Lake State Park, which is the other park that we manage up there. And it is artificial fly and lure only. And bag and possession and minimum size for trout is 18 inches, and you can only have 2.
Right.
So all that information's in the back of the fishing brochure. But at Steamboat Lake, you're allowed to keep 4 fish a day, up to 8 in total in your possession.
Nice. It's such a big, overall, I never realized how big, CPW is.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
There's how many, off the top of your head, do you know how many employees they have? Roughly?
I don't. Just
if you were to do a guess.
Steamboat Lake, we have 6 full-time staff, and then depending on the year, we can have upwards of 20, 25 seasonals. So that number obviously fluctuates just immensely depending on the time of year. I want to say we have 300-ish full-time officers. And again, that number with seasonal employees changes every season depending on what we have going on. We also have administrative staff that work in our offices. There's a whole financial team, and we have a lot of employees.
Yeah. This kind of goes off a little bit topic, but I'm going to bring it back. I was talking with Clint yesterday. We were just talking about farms and how, or ranchers, cattle ranchers, and how I have noticed in the past few years that these big properties of land that these farmers own, how it creates this sanctuary for the wildlife essentially to thrive. They're not getting that public pressure from hikers or people walking their dogs or people accessing a river to fish or to waterfowl hunt. And especially in the wintertime in the spring when the elk and the deer and bear and everyone, all the animals are coming out and they're calving, how it essentially creates this safe place for them. And and how that kind of correlates with, like, if we were talking, I was like, if we didn't have these ranchers, if there was none of this private land, you know, like as hunters and anglers and just general outdoors people, every once in a while it's slightly frustrating how much private land there is here in Colorado, as I'm sure there is in other states. But I've come to realize how essential that is for these population numbers. And if we were to wipe away all that private land and turn that to public access, what would then happen to the population numbers of these wild animals? Same thing versus if we didn't have park rangers and all this management in these state parks, how different our wildlife and the population numbers and the fish and the habitat and everything would completely be different.
Absolutely. You know, and we try to just make sure that people understand we're not a preservation agency, we're a conservation agency, which means that we support the wise use of our resources. We're not trying to keep people from recreating or doing these things, but we're also trying to manage and maintain population numbers and fish numbers and, you know, these pristine outdoor spaces. So, you know, you mentioned that these large chunks of private land are providing sanctuary and habitat and protection for a lot of our wildlife species. Even a lot of our public land, we have seasonal closures on for that exact reason, to allow, you know, the elk, when they're coming into this time of year, the end of a long winter, this is when they're the most vulnerable, when they're about to calve, when they're in the worst body condition. This is the time of year that a lot of those closures are absolutely imperative. And we understand people want to get out. We're getting spring fever, but, you know, maintaining any of those closures we have on public land is absolutely imperative to maintaining the resource and keeping those animals, you know, healthy and population density.
Yeah, very important. My friend was driving to work the other day and he noticed an elk it was a small elk. It had to have been a yearling, probably a year old or so, coming up on a year. And it had crossed the road and he was like, that thing's hurt. Like, he was looking at it. It wasn't acting normal. And instead of jumping over the guardrail, it kind of just like rolled over and was laying there on its back and like couldn't get up. And so he parked and he's like, I helped this thing out, try and get it up on its feet. He saw it was struggling, so I went over and tugged out on it a little bit and like didn't get up and move. And so he was like, man, this elk is definitely acting like it's sick or it's hurt in some way. So he ended up calling just the local police, and he was on his way to work and just let him know that, hey, there's this sick elk on the side of the road. Maybe you can come up and check it out. So they did, and they ended up just finishing it off, and on his way back down, he stopped and it was there. So he called and was like, hey, can I get a permit for this so I can take the meat? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. Just start field dressing it and we'll send you a tag for the elk. And he was stoked. He's like, oh, so much fresh meat, you know, some extra meat in the freezer. What a pleasant surprise. We went to cook it up the other day, and for one, the back straps were smaller than what a deer back straps would be. We're like, wow, this is interesting. Like, the meat is it's very small. The tenderloins, they were super small. And so he cooked it up and it was this really like spongy texture. Normally it has some sort of like firmness to it, right? And we were like, I don't know, like if we want to eat this. And we're like, let's just cook it for a little bit longer and see if it hardens up. And cooked it for a little bit longer, and it just had this really weird textured like sponginess to it. We ended up not eating it because I'm pretty sure that elk was sick with something. I don't think it was CWD. But I think it was probably just some malnutrition from the winter and just losing all of its density in its meat. And I think it just came down to the point that it was very close to dying just from malnutrition and not surviving the winter. Yep. Yeah.
And it's crazy because, you know, this winter hasn't been bad. Right. We haven't seen the horrible impacts of a bad winter this year at all. And it just goes to show how important, you know, protecting those places and giving those animals a place to go is
very important. Yeah, give them that space.
Yeah, they have such a hard time, especially this time of year. It's the dark right before the dawn. They're just holding out for that first little bit of spring, and we just got to get them over the hump, I guess. And
Man, I can't
yeah, it's
imagine being an
unfortunate.
elk or a wild animal
Oh
and being
yeah,
like, all right, you guys, one more month, we can do
yeah.
this. Or not
I
necessarily one
feel
more
it
month,
even
but
as a human,
yeah,
like
exactly.
being anxious for spring. I can't imagine the anticipation that they feel.
Yeah, and this time change, it's taken me a
Yeah,
while to get used to it. I don't set
same.
my alarm. I wake up with the sun. Luckily, I have a job that I don't like have to be at 8 a.m. in the morning. And so, yeah, for a while there, I was like, oh, I'm getting up at 6:30 every day. I'm getting an extra hour to be productive, and I love this. And then time change happened, and it's like, whoa,
Yep. Yep.
this is taking me a while in the morning to get ready. Kind of have to
Yeah,
refine that motivation, but
definitely.
yeah. How are things looking for spring coming up for you guys?
Good. Up at Steamboat Lake, we actually have lots and lots of maintained winter trails. So the park's kind of split into a non-motorized section and then a motorized section that provides access for snowmobilers to get to a couple different national forest locations. And, this time of year, the snow just kind of starts rotting, and we have several creek crossings and stuff that if we keep getting these sunny days, we're going to start losing more and more of those creek crossings every single day. We try and groom them and maintain them as best as we can, but it gets to a point this time of year where we're trying to hang on to every last bit that we have. And, they're still in pretty good shape, but like I already mentioned, the winter wasn't as great as they have been in years past. So,
Yeah.
Snow in general, we were just kind of, I don't know, a little less on the snowpack side this year. So hopefully we can hold on to those for a little bit longer. The ice is still really deep, but again, with these sunny days, we're going to be getting into that slushy season. And I know I don't particularly care for those days. Not the most fun in the entire world to post hole all over the lake. And,
Yeah.
that bottom layer is definitely still safe, but
Yeah.
it's still unnerving to fill your boots up with water walking around on the lake.
Exactly. Walking in a pile of slush.
Yes.
When does ice fishing usually go into? I'm sure obviously every year is different with the snow and the temperatures. But what's like your average season look like for ice fishing?
We usually hang on at least through part of April and sometimes May. I mean, it really does depend on the year, though. Last year, it was, a really good winter, and I feel like our ice hung on a little bit longer than it normally does, even with that warm spring. So, it'll just depend on how many more sunny days, because if it's sunny and windy, there's nothing that rips the ice off the lake faster than that
Right.
combination there. But yeah, we should probably have about a month left at least, through the end of March. It should still be good. It's just it gets into that slushy stuff, and it's not that maybe the ice isn't safe. It's just that people don't enjoy going out like that. Even in your snowshoes, it's very unpleasant. So we still have a little while, though.
Nice. So are you stationed at the lake year round?
Yep.
Do your duties pretty much stay consistent year round? So instead of focusing on the ice fishing, now you're more so focusing on people who are fishing or hiking. Probably see a rise in numbers in hikers, right?
Yeah. So my job obviously changes based on the season. A lot of people, I think, assume that because it's winter, state parks are just quiet or maybe less used, but that's actually not the case for Steamboat and Pearl Lake. We get just as much use in the winter. I mean, obviously not quite the numbers, but it's still busy for only a couple full-time staff members. So like I said, we have motorized and non-motorized groomed trails up there. So I'm out checking snowmobiles all winter, making sure that all the skiers have parks passes, and walking around on the lake checking ice fishermen. That's pretty much what I do all winter. Like I mentioned before, Colorado Parks and Wildlife actually does manage the registration program. So in the winter, we actually go out and do snowmobile patrols to check registrations on snowmobiles in the field. And then we also check on the grooming of all of, the areas in that north route section. Because that trails money goes back into the snow clubs that groom the trails. So it's important that we're actually checking on the status of grooming, making sure things are being groomed as they have been said that they are.
Right.
So that's pretty much what I do in the winter. And then we get into our mud season, our first mud season.
I keep hearing this whole mud season thing here in Steamboat. It's really a thing, huh?
It is a thing. So, it's kind of a joke that we don't really have spring. It's winter, mud season, August, and then winter again.
Yeah, and the snow's back.
Yeah. So it just gets kind of sloppy up there. We get all the trails starting to melt out, and the lake's kind of mushy. So we get kind of a little shoulder season where there's not great opportunities just because the snow's not deep enough to ski, but it's not gone enough to hike without, being completely bogged down in mud. Mm-hmm. So there's a little bit of an off season there where we try and get all of our seasonal hiring and all of that kind of stuff done. And then, starting Memorial Day, we get into that summer season, which after COVID last year, it has been a huge change, I guess, in the way we are seeing people come out to recreate.
Yeah, rise in numbers.
Yes, crazy spike in numbers. So I want to say the year before we had some people that would camp on the weekdays, and it wasn't as popular, I guess, for people to be taking these like week-long camping trips. But yeah, this last year, because people could work from home and had a little more flexibility with their schedule and just wanted to get out, we saw a huge increase in numbers. I think our campgrounds were full about 90% of the time from that Memorial Day to Labor Day span, which is predominantly our summer season, really. Right. So we had huge increases in numbers and lots of visitors that were actually new to any type of outdoor recreation, simply because there was nothing else for them to do this year.
It blows my mind that it takes something like a virus to get people to realize that, oh, I'm bored. Oh, maybe let's try go outside and do something.
Yeah. It was great to see that, people had finally, I guess, realized that.
Exactly.
But yeah, it just kind of changed the dynamic of what we do. A lot of new people, like I said, so that education piece of what we do was so important because we'd get people that came in that don't know anything about anything. This is their first camper. They've never camped in a state park before. So a lot of education opportunities for sure. And, within our state park, people can make reservations up to 6 months in advance online. And Steamboat Lake and Pearl Lake are, I guess, what you could consider destination parks. And so people were making reservations last year, and so it was pretty full regularly, but still people could come in sometimes on weekdays and get a campsite kind of as a walk-up. But this year I've had people calling that are like, I think there's something wrong with your system. I tried to book a campsite in June, and it's saying they're all full. It's because they are. Yeah. We are completely booked. I think right now they're booking out into September already.
Wow.
And it's, I look through our reservations and we are jam-packed 24/7, which is, completely different than normal because normally the weekdays kind of free up and give us some opportunities to do other programs. So it's been really interesting to see the change with how busy we've gotten the last year.
Yeah, it is absolutely gorgeous out there. When we came out to ice fish, that was, I had been out in that area previously a few years back during the fall with a friend. We went out and camped, but I was just blown away. I felt like I was just in the middle of the mountains, nowhere, in the middle of nowhere, just fishing on the ice with my friends. It was just such a great way to disconnect from everything. And, luckily, this is such a positive thing that has come, from COVID is people realizing, to use their natural resources and to reconnect with nature and to spend that quality time with their kids or their spouses or their friends, or just getting out there alone and spending some time. And whether that's ice fishing or snowmobiling or hiking or, I'm really curious. I want to take a look at the number of hunters this year to see if because I feel like there was definitely a rise in the amount of people coming out to hunt. Every single trailhead that we went to had at least 4 vehicles at it. And, it's a give and take. You want to encourage, and, that's part of why we do this podcast is we want to educate and we want to encourage people to get out there. But if you take a look at how much land is in Colorado and other states, I'm not necessarily just being specific to Colorado here, but there's a lot of land out there. Maybe try this other trailhead or this place. But I think, a lot of people are used to doing with what's somewhat comfortable. So we want to go to a trailhead that we can hike in and that we can access. So it's opened my eyes a little bit more to where I'm going to hunt in the future. Like, I obviously want to get away from the pressure of the public and start hunting these areas where the animals are going to be getting pushed to, and it's might going to be a little bit more trek to get in there. But it's such a give and take. A balance, just like anything in life, where we want to educate and support and encourage people to get out there. But at the same time, it's like, whoa, this is a little overwhelming. There's 6 trucks at the trailhead. Maybe we should go somewhere else. We go to the next spot. Oh, there's 5 trucks here,
Yep. And I think this year, too, we had a lot of hunters that were displaced from those fires. So So I guess in the summer, you know what I do. And then in the fall, I do spend a lot of time out checking hunters. And so, I talked to a lot of guys that were like, we've never been here before. We just we were winging it because we had this tag and it does cover this area and we can't hunt where we always hunt. And so this year overall was just strange for everybody, I think, when it comes to all of that.
You're able to, you have the authority to check hunting licenses and?
Yep. So as Colorado Parks and Wildlife, we are one agency. So we all work out of, our main priority is Title 33 law, which is Parks and Wildlife law. And so I am fortunate that where I'm at, the wildlife officer appreciates the help, and my park manager supports us going out and doing those kinds of things. It's not the typical experience because a lot of state parks have very different visitation than we do that time of year. Predominantly in the fall, our campers are hunters. And there's not a lot else going on within the park. So we are actually able to break away when we have coverage and go out into the areas that surround the park, because the park's pretty much surrounded by national forest, and help out with those hunting patrols.
Do you take time off every year to hunt a little bit for yourself?
I do. Yeah. I also have an awesome boss who lets me do that. He's super supportive of that. And, it'll get towards the end of the season and he's like, you sure you don't want to just, go try like one more weekend? I'm like, you're right. I probably should.
Yeah. Good suggestion.
So I'm pretty fortunate.
That's great. Do you have any hunts in particular planned for this year that are new and different and exciting for you, or what do you got planned?
I haven't quite decided what I'm doing yet. I need to, that's actually something on my to-do list for today, is to sit down and, since the draw is coming up, decide what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
I tried bear hunting last year for the first time, and that was awesome. I had so much fun. So I definitely want to do that again this year.
Was that with archery? Archery or rifle?
No, I ended up getting one of those early season rifle tags, and going out, and it was awesome. I had so much fun.
I feel like bear's one of those species here in Colorado. Bear and mountain lion are 2 species, and coyotes that we need to encourage people to break out. It's not, it's not your typical, I shouldn't say not your typical, but like I know a lot of people starting out when they hunt, it's all about shooting an elk or all about shooting a really nice buck. But the bear populations and the coyote and even the mountain lion populations here are insane. Yeah. I'm sure you probably see bears up there quite a bit. Do you ever see any mountain lions cruising around?
No, cats are a little more, I think, skittish to the people that we have. We did have one, at least, that we're sure of up at Pearl Lake, and that's pretty common. We just don't see them very much. And that particular cat, a couple of our staff members saw a couple different times, and she did have a couple of cubs that were spotted. But she never came out and really bothered park visitors. Again, I think it's because cats are a little more elusive, I guess.
Right.
And Pearl Lake is busy all the time with people, so
Yeah.
I think they just kind of stick to that backside by the forest and don't really cause much fuss. Same thing with bears in our park. I think there's just so many people that it's not worth it to them to come in and do much of that. Obviously, if we do have one in the area, we try to go out and educate people, make sure everybody's being bear aware and putting food away and not leaving stuff out. But luckily, we don't tend to see the problems that, the city of Steamboat sees, for example.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's a great example of how you guys are properly managing the park. People aren't leaving trash out where the bears now are like, oh, this is an easy meal. They're not feeding the wildlife, respecting the animal space. In return, those animals are going to respect our space as well.
Definitely.
Cool. Have you thought about antelope hunting at all?
That's actually one thing I've never hunted is antelope.
Yeah. Me either, but I'm going to try it, I think, this year.
Yeah, my fiance got a private land tag and actually shot one out of our backyard last year.
Nice.
Yeah. I don't know. I like antelope. I just have never done it. My mom and dad and stuff always have antelope hunted. It's just not been something I guess I've been super excited by. I don't know why. Just haven't been.
Right. So did you grow up hunting?
Yeah. Yeah, I did. Yeah, pretty much something that I've always done. I recently got into archery hunting. So that's been an awesome, fun, new experience.
You should come do Total Archery Challenge with us.
That's something I've actually looked into recently, so I probably should just get a hold of you guys. And
yeah. We are doing Saturday and Sunday. It's in Glenwood Springs at Sunlight Mountain. I did it last year, and I just loved the atmosphere there. So Total Archery Challenge, you can make it as competitive as you want, but it's not like a paid competition. You're paying the money to go and shoot this amazing, there's several different courses. And so we're going to shoot, one course on Saturday, and then Sunday morning we'll shoot another. Sunday is going to be more of a difficult, real scenario, shots. You're shooting up to 70 yards, and you're shooting through trees. You're shooting on a steep incline. And some of those shots even go further than 70 yards, but we're going to go and we're going to shoot a couple days. And like I said, I love the atmosphere there because you go in and people are just stoked to be outside on the mountain with their bows, surrounded by people who are wanting to do the same exact thing. My friend Jake and I went there last year with intentions to just shoot together. And we got off the lift, and so you have to hike up the mountain, then you, a little ways, a few hundred yards. And then you take another lift up to the top of the mountain, and then all the courses are spread out, and you go to your course and basically hike your way back down the mountain. It's just it depends on your group size on how long it takes you. But so it was just the two of us, and we're like, well, let's just try and get in another course after this. It shouldn't take us too long. It's 25 3D shots that you have. And we ended up being behind this other group of 4 guys, and they're like, why don't you guys just tag along with us so you're not just waiting for us to finish, you can just shoot with us. And we're like, yeah, cool. And we hopped right in, and it's like we picked up like we had been buddies forever. I've been in contact with a couple of the guys from that group, and we were just messaging the other day, and he's like, hey, we're going to be in Big Sky, Montana, if you want to join us. And I was like, well, shoot, I kind of have some other things planned. I'm not going to make it work, but yeah, if you want to join us on Sunday, we have, I think there's still spots. Saturday sold out so fast. I was at 9, so registration opened at 9:00, and I was sitting here with my computer, and the countdown was going, and I was just waiting because I was like, this is going to book up super fast if they are, making a
right.
Selecting one day for you to make reservations to open it. So I was trying to book 3 spots for me and 2 of my friends, and I wasn't even able to get us all on the same knock time because that's how fast people were booking it up. I'm hoping to bring along some of this podcast gear and not have a booth, but it'd be cool to have it. We're going to do a camping trip. We're going to camp all weekend, and we're going to shoot Saturday and Sunday. So another great thing about this course is, you come up to the spot to shoot and it's 50 yards. Well, no one says you have to shoot at 50 yards. If you don't feel comfortable shooting at whatever distance it is, you just wait until everyone's done, and because you're in a group and it's one group at a time, one group moves on and then the other group comes in. It's not like this rushed, pressured shoot. And so there was a few shots where I was like, I don't feel comfortable shooting that. I'm going to walk up another 10 or 20 yards and take a shot. And
Awesome.
so it's very encouraging. There was this kid that was 12 years old that was shooting with us, and it was just really cool to see his dad there. And each time his dad was coaching him, he's like, take your time, breathe, slowly pull the trigger. And some shots he was perfect. Some shots he completely lost his arrow. And I mean, that happens to all of us.
Yeah.
I think I lost a couple arrows, but really puts into perspective the real life scenarios that you're going to experience when you're out there hunting. It's not 20 yards, 40 yards. You're on a perfect horizontal line shooting at your target, repetitive. Right. You're hiking, you're in the sun, you're in the elements, you're surrounded by good people. It's so much fun. So I encourage all of you guys to check out these sort of archery challenges. I'm going to be doing the Alpha Archery Challenge as well. It's put on by No Limits Archery in Denver, and that one's more of like a physical challenge mixed in with that. So you've got to do like some sandbag get-ups and like sprints and things where you're actually physically exerting yourself, and then you shoot at the target between each one. So I love those sort of competitions. They just make us, I feel like, such a way more competent hunter going into the hunting season. And to be able to like physically push yourself like that, and to have an idea of what your shot placement is looking at when your heart rate is jacked up and you're tired is usually a good piece of humble pie. So
yeah, I've heard great things about those types of shoots.
Cool. Awesome. Well, Kirsten, it's been lovely.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for all the information. If anyone needs, if there's people out there and they're looking for more information on, there's a lot of information that we talked on, especially about like who CPW is and, what you guys do. Direct them on over where they can find more information if they're looking for that.
Yeah, so if you guys visit our website, cpw.state.co.us, you'll find everything about everything that we do. So hunting information, fishing, camping, parks passes, registrations, all of it's going to be on that website.
Hunting licenses too, right? Like that's where you can find your big game manual. You can go on there and look up your big game manual. I also discovered yesterday you can go on there and look up the statistics from last year's and the year's previous hunt. Like if you're trying to plan your hunt, you can go on there and you can go to Unit 15, how many tags were given out for non-resident, how many tags were given to the youth, how many tags were given to the ranchers and, whatnot. And then you can kind of break down your odds and look at kind of what are your chances at drawing a tag or maybe being successful in a certain area. So a great resource, and thank you CPW for all you guys do. Like without you guys, we wouldn't be able to enjoy the state parks and hunt and fish and be able to enjoy all of it. So
thanks.
Yeah. Thanks to you guys. All right. Well, have a great day, Kirsten. We'll chat more about Total Archery Challenge and some hunts, huh?
Perfect.
Sounds good. All right.
Bye.
This is God's country.